I think we need to do a lot of thinking and rethinking and re-looking, addressing the problem from a different perspective, in my view. And how did I suddenly become so wise, and why didn't I do it when I was at headquarters? Because since I left NASA, which is 16 years ago, I had time to think, which I didn't have when I worked there. And I have the time to think continuously and readdress and question. The IRAD is useful. It was a device in the right direction. Resistive exercise obviously was going to be better. But we never really sat down and said, well, what is it that gravity does? How is it perceived? What is the signal the body sees? What is it you need to replace that you're taking away? It's not necessarily, in my view, a rotating spacecraft, a Star Trek device. It's not necessarily that. You can get away, I think, with some other form of providing the stimulation that is the signal. Exactly. Once you understand what the body needs as a signal. And in my view, what the body needs as a signal is low intensity, high frequency, intermittent exposure to something akin to the gravity stimulus. You cannot train one muscle or part of the body or different aspects of the body with exercise, and you certainly can't do it once a day. Because if you did a time course of the changes in that occur during spaceflight, and then you did a time course immediately after exercise, you would probably find exactly the same pattern. In other words, the minute you stop exercising, you revert to microgravity. That is not true on Earth. Exercise on Earth is different because the minute you stop, you're still in gravity. Steve Hawley, who was an astronaut and
he was the deputy up at Ames. He was my colleague there at the astronaut corps, right?
Right, exactly. And a very sound thinker, said to me something very interesting one day. He said, you know, Joan, I exercised as hard as I possibly could. The minute I stopped, I felt nothing. I said, what do you mean you felt nothing? He said, well, I was not out of breath. My heart rate was right down. And that made me think that we really should map what happens right after exercise. And I had told him then, which is over 20 years ago. And to this day, I don't think anyone has looked at the after effect, the after response of exercise. I mean, we know what it is like on Earth, but that's not necessarily what happens in space. In space, you're right back to microgravity the instant you stop. So on Earth, we now know that we are perpetual motion machines. We need gravity stimulation. We need to use gravity not just once a day. We know that exercise once a day does not counteract the effects of sitting, for instance. So why should it work in space? You have to have a way of providing the stimulus intermittently all day. And if presumably when you sleep in space, it's anywhere near like sleeping on Earth, which it's not either, but it's closer, then at least 16 hours a day, you have to have the possibility of getting your stimulus intermittently. Now, how long the effect lasts, again, you have to figure out the instant you stop what happens so that you know what the interval is. Now, on the ground, for instance, and that was the last piece of research I ever did at Ames,